irrational, that's all there is to that. Their heads are full of cotton hay and rags. They're nothing but exasperating, irritating, vacillating, calculating, agitating, maddening, and infuriating hags.
Oh, I want to speak to Mr. Brewster Budgeon, please. Yes, I'll wait.
Pickering, why can't a woman be more like a man?
Hi, and welcome to Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at 3 women who have launched a campaign to force politicians to answer a question. Now, this is one that has been asked of many politicians in recent weeks, none of whom have found it an answerable question. They all vacillate, deflect, give useless answers. None of them will answer the question. And so these women are pushing, like modern suffragettes, to get the question answered and insisting that it should be answered by all politicians. And I think it's a really good idea. So I'm going to put myself down in my little corner and we will take a look at this article. Can a woman have a penis? And here's the article. Can a woman have a penis? 3 brave activists launch most significant female movement since the suffragettes, urging public demand every politician standing in next month's elections can answer that very simple and direct question. Can a woman have a penis? Now, this article is by Maya Forstater, so I'll be reading this as though I'm her, but I'll be interjecting as myself, just to clarify. So when I talk about I, it's Maya. But this is her piece, so we'll go through this. Can a woman have a penis? A simple question, you may imagine, but not, it seems, for a flustered Sir Keir Starmer, who squirmed when asked just this in a radio interview this week. Now, I did do an article on this, I did do a video on this and showed him up, and he was deeply, deeply troubled and uncomfortable trying to answer that question. He couldn't spin it in any way that wouldn't upset either women if he went one way, or the tiny trans minority if he went the other way. But this was the answer he gave when asked that question. I don't think we can conduct this debate with, I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run, the Labour leader stammered. Sir Keir Starmer, perhaps. And he was very, very uncomfortable there. Anyway. And he's certainly not the only politician struggling with such matters. Annalise Dodds, the Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities, how can she be the Minister for Women when she's incapable of defining a woman? She recently had an issue defining precisely what a woman was. A clue, Annalise. Look in the mirror. Before reaching the conclusion, it depends on what the context is. No, it really doesn't. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, too, in a recent radio interview, was unable to say in his own words what a woman was. How worrying is it that politicians are now too cowardly to answer this most basic of questions, that they are unable to define what is, after all, half the population? Well, actually, slightly more than half, 51%, is it? Are they too cowardly or are they too stupid? Either way, we should not allow them any power, and they should be voted out of office if they're not, if they're either too stupid or too cowardly to answer the question. They shouldn't be an authority. And what do we know of the views of all the other MPs and councillors who represent women in this country? Hardly anything, because so few have the courage to stick their heads above the parapet. And this is because they know if they do put their heads above the parapet, they'll get shot at. And they are all basically cowards. And they are self-serving, and they are doing anything they can to keep their grasping fingers on power. And if that means they refuse to answer questions because the answers may prove unpopular, then they won't answer them. and that's fine. They don't answer the questions, they don't get the votes. When it comes to publicly standing up for females, as inch by inch our hard-fought rights are eroded as more biological males self-identify as women, bravery is in very short supply. In a series of tweets earlier this month, J.K. Rowling, God bless her, who has faced the wrath of trans activists for her comments on the subject, warned politicians that women were organising to defend their rights. And quite right too, because rights are never given. Rights are always taken. Usually by force. Just look at what happened with the suffragettes in order to allow women to vote. They asked, they were refused, and so they had to resort to other means. And now they're having those rights taken away from them. Women have got to fight for this. Today, exclusively in the Daily Mail, I can reveal that this warning is becoming a reality with a new force that represents the most significant women's movement since the suffragettes.
I'm beginning to see why the suffragette movement want the vote.
Hey! Any bird who wants to chain herself to my railings and suffer a jet movement gets my vote.
So, 3 of the country's largest campaign groups on women's rights, Women Uniting, Sex Matters and Women's Rights Network, are mobilising with a new campaign. Respect my sex if you want my ex. Great slogan. We believe that politicians should know they can't expect our cross in the voting box if they do not acknowledge and protect women's sex-based rights. I hear you, sister. And we want you to help us. And I try my best. I've done a whole series of videos on this because I believe it's important. I want to stand up. We need as many people as we can to join hands, join arms, take up the fight, because women are being cancelled and it's quite wrong. We want as many members of the general public, female and male, and across all party lines, because this is not a party matter, this is a human rights matter, to quiz their politicians, both national and local, about their stance on women's rights and trans issues. Do you know how your local representatives would answer the question, can a woman have a penis? Well, there's only one way to answer the question, and that is no. If you don't, it's time to ask them the questions so many politicians are currently flip-flopping on, especially ahead of key local elections on May the 5th. Our group represents women from all walks of life. Some have never been politically active before, whereas others have been in politics for decades and have different views on some issues. And that's right, because you may be from the left of the spectrum to the right of the spectrum. You might be, you might think that this particular subject is important. Someone else thinks something else is important. But this is a unifying topic. This subject, this issue, is unifying everybody because it affects everybody. One thing that they all agree on is this: men cannot be women. Women, Sir Keir, cannot have penises. Some politicians, such as Shadow Justice Secretary David Lammy, have implied that this isn't an issue that bothers most people, that it's not something that is cutting through to the grassroots. That's disingenuous, because politicians say, oh, this isn't important, when in actual fact, what they actually mean is, I daren't answer that question. So again, they're deflecting, oh, it's not a question I can answer because it's not important, rather than, I don't want to answer that question because I'm a craven coward, which would be the correct response, rather than deflecting. Well, not maybe the correct response, but at least the honest response. I can assure him that this is entirely untrue. I've talked to so many deeply concerned women and men who feel politically adrift in the current climate. Whatever their broader political views, they tell me that politicians are not listening to them about this vitally important issue, which is adversely affecting all our lives. And it is. When you're getting grown men walking naked around a changing room where there will be young girls present, but they're doing so because I'm a lady now, with their huge lady penis, you know. Indeed, I know more than most about how speaking out about this can cause a huge personal toll. In March 2019, I lost a job as a visiting fellow and tax expert at the think tank Centre for Global Development after tweeting my belief that people cannot change their biological sex. I took my employers to court, only to lose my original case at a tribunal after employment judge James Taylor ruled that my views were not protected under British law, but were instead incompatible with human dignity and the fundamental rights with others. I still remember the shock and disbelief I felt at reading this damning judgment. It was immensely gratifying when, out of the blue, J.K. Rowling tweeted supportively about my case with the hashtag #IStandWithMaya. I stand with Maya too. I have enormous gratitude for her for speaking up for me and for being so resolute since, for not backing down, even when her bravery wreaked havoc on her life with a campaign of online trolling that led to her being cancelled. Thankfully, I was vindicated on appeal in 2021 when Mr. Justice Chowdhury said my gender-critical beliefs fell under the Equality Act as they did not seek to destroy the rights of a trans person. As well as this, in my role as a Scout leader, I had a complaint made against me for raising concerns about the Scouts' transgender policy, which could have meant an end to separate spaces, such as sleeping facilities for girls. In the process, I inadvertently called a non-binary Scout leader he and not they. Well, a simple blood test will tell you if he's a he. If he's got XY chromosomes, he's a he. Doesn't matter what junk he's got in his pants, he's a he. It took 2 years for the organisation to apologise to me, but similar things are still happening today to women in their workplaces, schools, universities, and in every part of life, making it difficult for them to speak up. I am currently awaiting the results of a new hearing, asking a tribunal to rule that I was discriminated against and lost my job because of my gender-critical beliefs. And I do hope she wins, because if you have got any beliefs, they are yours and you have the right in law to hold those beliefs. I will probably hear the result in May, and if I win, employers will have to stop blithely adopting policies that amount to discrimination against people they casually label bigots. That's right, it's not bigoted to stand up for the rights of women. It's bigoted to cancel women to protect a tiny minority of men with mental issues. Since then, I have co-founded the group Sex Matters, which helps people understand their rights and campaigns on their behalf. I'm going to put a link to that in my description. Campaigning alongside us are 2 other groups encouraging people to ask questions during the local elections. So many women are worried to speak up publicly because they are afraid for their jobs, but 2 women who are bravely standing up are Heather Binning of the Women's Rights Network and Caroline Fisk of Women Uniting. And I applaud them, and yes, they are right to stand up for this. Why should women have rights removed because of a tiny minority? Everything you've worked hard for, fought for, in some cases died for, are now being stripped away because some inadequate little man can't handle life. Today, it has over 1,000 members in 60 groups across the UK. Caroline, a former economist and management consultant, spent 8 years as a Conservative councillor in Hammersmith and Fulham before co-founding Conservatives for Women, along with others concerned about the gender debate's impact on female rights. She works with Women Uniting, a group for concerned women across all political parties. You may wonder why we have chosen the upcoming May local elections as the first stage of our campaign. She continues, surely local elections are far more mundane matters like potholes and bin collections. Far from it. It's easily forgotten how much is under local authority control, from single-sex services such as changing rooms in sports centres and toilet facilities in parks, to the guidance given to schools about sex education and how they respond to children who are gender questioning. Our campaign, then, is very much a local issue and a very real issue, you know. Local services touch everybody's lives, and it's local authorities making decisions which lead to funding being taken away from women's refuges and rape crisis centres, for example, if they don't open their services to biological men who identify as women. Yeah, so you're a refuge for vulnerable women who may be domestic violence victims from men, and we're funding you. But now we're going to stop funding you because you won't let men into the building. How is that not misogynistic? How is that not wrong? And why are you voting, you, the viewer, why are you voting for people who want this to happen, who want vulnerable women to be traumatised further? Don't vote for these people. Look at these people, ask them the question, and ask them, would they cut funding to a woman's refuge if they refuse to let a biological male into the building? And if they vacillate, if they are pause, then you know you don't vote for them. So, moving on. Therefore, we are asking candidates and councillors to respect women's rights to single-sex spaces and services, protect the safeguarding of vulnerable children, and prioritise sex over gender in language, law, policy and regulation. Local authorities are coming under huge pressure to be trans-inclusive in all of their services, but this means they can't offer women and girls a secure single-sex environment when they need it most. This whole debate comes down to a specific question of trust. And I've never trusted politicians. We all know they're lying, two-faced, manipulative bastards, really. They want to get their fingers on power. They want to climb that greasy pole, and they will slit the throats of everyone below them as they do so. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. But they need to be woke. They need their viewpoints. Oh, look what I'm doing. Virtue signal. I've earned 33 woke points today. Done nothing for the local community, but they've raised their own profile nicely, you know. They're horrible people, politicians. Many politicians blithely advertise a trans flag and a rainbow barra and repeat slogans like trans women are women and all that rubbish political mantra, isn't it? They do anything to appear inclusive, but spend little time ensuring services are accessible to everyone on the basis of reality, not slogans. And this is the trouble. My advice to those putting themselves forward for election is to examine the Equality Act, recognise the principle of biological sex being a protected characteristic, and ensure single-sex services are allowed in all kinds of everyday situations. After all, this is an issue that directly affects 50% of the population and affects all our lives at a community level. So when candidates come knocking and ask, what are you concerned about? This is your opportunity. Ask them those questions. Ask the questions so many politicians have stumbled on. Explain why it matters to you as a parent or a user of local services or as a professional who feels they can't speak up at work. Then you can decide whether to give them your vote or not. And if you don't happen to see a political representative in the flesh, you can email them or write to them using the guidance you can find on our website. And then there's the website address, which I will put, as I say, I'll put that in my description. Politicians need to find their backbone. They can't continue to stumble over questions like, can a woman have a penis? They need to stand up for females everywhere. I applaud this woman, and I back her 100%, and I hope that you, loyal viewer, will also back her. And I did a video about her. What a horrible little squirt he is. Another one, he's one of those, we must help people. When asked if he would take any Ukrainian refugees, no, it's not suitable. How do you define trans? And she says, it's not a fair question. I can't even look at that mug. Emily, God almighty, she is the most repulsive creature that ever got elected into Parliament. Another one, the racist Nandi. None of these people can define a woman or can say if a woman can have a penis or anything like this. Another Labour, and she's an awful woman and all, thick as two short planks. They really are. But then coming down to just finish this piece off, local political parties also need to be inclusive of people with different views about this and permit discussion and debate. And the trouble is they keep closing down the debate. Because the moment you raise it, they close that debate down because they don't want the debate, because if there is a debate they'll have to pick a side, and Jesus, the last thing a politician wants to do is pick a side. Many politicians are just trying to sit on the fence, presumably because they like the feeling, they claim the whole debate is too toxic. Well, that's the whole point of having the debate. If it's too toxic to talk about, you need to talk about it. We want to make that fence difficult to sit on, because we women are angry at being ignored. We're angry at politicians don't take us seriously. We're furious that we are shamed for speaking basic truths. Of course, there are solutions that allow transgender people not to be discriminated against and participate in society, but that doesn't mean biological males should be able to just take over women's spaces and women's sports. It's been 100 years since women got the vote, and it's time to use that vote and take that power off these people. Every rule and policy that says something is for women is being changed so that it's now for people who self-identify as women, whatever their sex. The time has come for women to fight back. The days of politicians disrespecting our rights and thinking we will still vote for them are over. I congratulate you. Well done, sisters. You get my vote if ever you stood. Now, I'm going to come up and finish this video. It's gone on a bit longer than I hoped, but only because it's such an important matter and it's one I feel strongly about. But I'll come up now and we'll round off. So at least now the fight back is beginning. We had the cycling people push back against the man in cycling. Now women are organising, women are pushing back, and they're aiming purely at the politicians. And the politicians haven't got a clue what's going to hit them, because they sit there in their little ivory towers, well away from the real people who their policies really affect. And they don't like it when real people get uppity, ask them questions, put them on the spot and make them feel uncomfortable. And from now on, we need to do that. We need to hold every politician accountable. And this is a brilliant, brilliant way of forcing them on the spot, putting them on the back foot, getting an answer from them, and telling them if they don't answer, they don't get a vote. And the last thing a politician wants to hear is that he's not getting a vote, because if they lose and they're out, they've got to go and live in the real world and get a real job. And let's face it, most of them are pretty thick and they won't be able to get a real job. So let's give them that worldly experience of going out and trying to find a job. Answer the question truthfully or you're out. And I wish these women the best of luck. They will have my full support, and I hope that you, dear viewer, will also support them in their endeavours and give women back the rights that they've worked so hard to gain, and that are now being whittled away, salami sliced day after day after day, and where women are made and put in danger, basically put in danger. They're made to feel less than they are, but it's also the danger point when you're putting men in wards. I've done an example of a hospital ward which was all female, but a transgender was put in. He then went on to rape a woman, and the hospital covered it up. Was anybody prosecuted for the cover-up? No. Why not? Because politics. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And now the pushback is beginning, and it's about damn time. If you like what you hear and see on this channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell for our future output. Leave a like, definitely leave a comment. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.